Justin Herbert has played Superman for this team many times, but he was not good on Monday Night Football, and the Chargers couldn't overcome it.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making this your first listen, especially on shows like this that are a little tougher to watch, of course. But to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, I know this is a tough one. What do we got today?
Yeah, unfortunately, we got to discuss the devastating loss to the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. The Chargers dropped this one 20-17. So we're going to get into Justin Herbert not being his sharpest, offense kind of, disappearing from time to time, and the defense really being bad in some really key moments.
And that's what this game boiled down to, right? It's like defensively, you feel, one step forward, 2 steps back. Really good in big portions of this game, but when it matters most, can't do it. And Justin Herbert just wasn't good. And there's a lot of factors for that. He doesn't take all the blame, but when you're him, you're going to take a blame for a loss like this. But This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It starts with Justin Herbert. With this team, it always does. And on the prediction show that came out, this morning on Monday when we recorded it, was, hey, primetime Justin Herbert has to show up. And he wasn't that in this game, David. And it was very uncharacteristic of him. And the plays we're talking about here, obviously he had some tough throws that were under pressure, and he missed them. But there was also some really clean looks that he got that he just didn't connect on, especially, 2 plays to Keenan Allen on double moves where Keenan Allen just puts disgusting moves on DBs, gets himself wide open, and Justin Herbert just sailed him, right? And there was a few plays that were like that, a couple passes that were behind. But this was just a bad game by Justin Herbert's standards, and there's no way around it. And even though it's not all his fault, like, he has to take the majority of a blame in a loss like this, where if Justin Herbert plays good, you win this game.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert was not his usual self in this game. I mean, a guy who makes all of the regular throws, but makes all of the incredible throws as well. He did not make those incredible throws in this one. And, man, thinking back on that double move Keenan Allen put on, he literally made the defensive back almost roll out of bounds, that he broke his ankles that badly. That was horrible by him, and Keenan Allen was by himself, and that throw is missed. I mean, that's just not something that you are expecting or that you expect from Justin Herbert, because he makes those plays all the time. He just wasn't himself tonight. He wasn't his best version of himself on prime time. Those missed throws are just not something you expect from Justin, but Justin is human, and that human nature came out tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to say that he had a ton of help, right? Like, I mean, he definitely just missed some wide open dudes, but a total lack of the running game, which we'll talk about. The offensive line is a mess again, getting kind of dominated for the second straight game, and you're going to have to go up against good pass rushers, and he just has to look better than that. And, like, the other thing is here, too, is, like, if you go back and look, like, Justin Herbert actually made some ridiculous throws in this game. It just gets lost because of the ones we're so accustomed to him making. Like, he had some really good rips in this game where he's putting the ball on the money 30 yards down the field, in big moments. Some of them were called back as well because of so many penalties that you had that absolutely destroyed them. But, like, in a game like this, Justin Herbert has to be able to overcome, and he has to be able to take a team that's obviously flawed and go win a very winnable game. Justin Herbert teams should be scoring more than 17 points in a game. Yeah. Like, they had chances to do it, and they missed out on it. And like, the thing is, I don't even really blame him as much for the game losing interception. Like, that's low on the list of things I'm talking about when I'm saying he doesn't have a good game. Obviously, tried to make something happen there late in the game. Would have been, if he takes the sack there 4th and forever, and he was trying to avoid that. But, like, it was just uncharacteristic misses, David. And you wonder how much is it the finger, that he's worried about, how much it was just the offensive line and the pressure that he was facing getting to him. But, like, he sped himself up and he just wasn't good.
I mean, he was under constant pressure. I mean, he was only sacked once, but
Very misleading.
The pressure percentage that he was under was very evident. It was very noticeable. Justin Herbert is a magician at escaping pressure and getting the ball away or protecting himself or running, and he does a great job of that. But that is why those numbers are very misleading, because of his ability to get away from those plays, but it doesn't mean it's not affecting the plays. And it was very obvious that Justin Herbert, he got hit a couple times and it was throwing off his timing, and he was kind of feeling pressure a little bit that, in certain situations wasn't really there. And that did cause him to miss some throws that we see Justin Herbert hit week after week.
And miss some reads, right? Miss some open guys in this game as well as part of it. But I think it really just goes into the late game execution for this team continuing to struggle. The Chargers have had 5 games. They've had 5 chances to go put a team away offensively. They ended up getting a second chance against the Raiders, and they deserve a little bit of credit for Justin Herbert making that ridiculous throw to Josh Palmer to end that Raiders game. But they should have ended it before that. 4th and 1 disasters against the Vikings and the Raiders, right, where you had a chance to go win the game. Down by 2 against the Dolphins with a field goal winning the game, can't get it done. Multiple chances to put away the Titans and can't get it done. And in this game, down by 3 to a good team with your offense, mostly intact. Like, you still had everyone out there. And you come up short. And that has become a really bad trend by this team, David, and the reason that they've lost 3 games by a total of 8 points.
Yeah, I mean, it really started in the first game of the season against the Miami Dolphins, when the Chargers had the ball with an opportunity to go win the football game. And unfortunately, the protection breaks down on those third down situations, and Justin Herbert can't get away from it. And that happened again against the Dallas Cowboys. The Chargers were in a position where they only needed 3 points to go tie the game, and were in a good position to maybe go down and score a touchdown and win the football game. But the protection again breaks down. A guy that you did a very good job of preventing from wrecking the game up to that point, Micah Parsons, shows up in the moments where he absolutely has to the most, and he makes a play. And Trey Pipkins is unable to block him, and he gets Justin Herbert on the ground, and not even, it was very quick. I mean, it was a miss right away.
That would be a hard one to get away from.
Yeah, that was it was a tough situation, but that's when you got to have your best. I mean, you got to have your pass protection in those situations where you got to move the ball down the field. And it just too often this year, the Chargers are getting, they're getting taken advantage of, and they're getting taken off the field, and they're losing football games because of the late game mechanics and them failing.
And I think the thing that sucks too is there's just some late game, the actual execution is just not good. Like the awareness isn't good. Like some plays that will be kind of, probably fly under the radars in the first half. You have a 2nd and 20 with Donald Parham catching a pass in the flats where he has a chance to get at least 10 yards and he's running out of bounds, actually saving the Cowboys more time for a drive for them to go get a field goal. And instead of, a 3rd and 10, you're looking at a 3rd and 15 against one of the best pass rushers in the league, and it's just almost impossible to live like that. Yeah. Also, maybe give yourself a chance at a field goal and some points there. So, there's that. At the very end of the game, I took some heat for saying, but Keenan Allen, you got to go get that first down right there. The very first play of the last drive, it ended up going down as a 5-yard penalty on an offsides. But Keenan Allen had a play that he ended up gaining 8 yards on. The Chargers decided 1st and 5 is better than 2nd and 2, even though they ended up in the same spot regardless. But Keenan Allen had a chance to go get a first down, potentially get 15 yards, and that sets up a totally new set of downs. They end up never getting that first down, right? Right. It's just little things like that. And then defensively too, right? Making bad, boneheaded plays, making just dumb plays in big-time moments and getting penalized. And this is the thing, though. It's just at the end of the day, it's just a continuation of the Chargers not being able to beat good teams. And that's what makes it so upsetting about a game like this, because if you felt like they could pull some off, you would think they would have potential to go make a run down the end of the season because they have so many freaking good teams left on their schedule. If you can't beat good teams, you're just not going to be able to make the playoffs or make any sort of significant run this season. And since 2022 started, they have one good win, and it was against the Dolphins. That's it. That's the only good team, the only playoff team that they've been able to beat since the start of 2022.
This isn't enjoyable for us to say, but it's the facts. That's just unfortunately what it's been. The Chargers have not been able to close out and win against good teams, so unfortunately, they're not a good team.
And now you just fall to 2-3 going into Kansas City, right? And this was supposed to be Kellen Moore's revenge game, and it doesn't really feel like it right now. So we're going to talk about Kellen Moore and this offense kind of failing as a whole coming up right after this. I do need to tell you guys first, though, that this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way? Like you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it? I definitely feel that way a lot, and that is something that therapy has helped me with a lot. And honestly, like, without therapy and the tools that I've gotten from it, I don't know if I'm able to do this show tonight after actually what we just saw. Like, you should see how my therapist looks at me when I tell him about the Chargers and how I, torture myself by watching this team week in and week out. But, like, therapy has helped give me the tools that even when I'm not there, even when I'm not in a session, right, like, I have the tools to kind of battle with the tough parts of my day-to-day life, and I think that's such an underrated part of therapy. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try because it's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. And if your first therapist doesn't work, you can change until you get the right fit. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. You can make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. I also need to tell you guys something that actually is one of my favorite things and makes me feel better to talk about it right now, considering what we just watched from the Chargers. DoorDash. And DoorDash is a game day essential. I can't tell you guys how nice my Sundays have been the last 2 Sundays, getting Sundays to watch football without the Chargers being able to let me down like they did tonight. And this is the thing. If you don't have all the groceries and things that you need by 10 o'clock, usually you're screwed. Because after that 10 o'clock whistle, that 10 o'clock game kicks off, you can't miss the action. Like, missing the action is not an option, right? You can't go out and get groceries if you forgot dip. If you forgot hamburger buns, you can't just go out. That's where DoorDash comes in. Whatever you're missing, you forgot hamburger buns, they will bring it right to you. All the things that you need from the grocery store you have at the touch of your fingers now with DoorDash, and it is crucial for NFL Sundays. If you don't have DoorDash for NFL Sundays to go get you the things you don't need to get that dip that you have to have after the games have kicked off, you're doing yourself a disservice. So right now you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23, subject to change. Terms apply, but don't forget, that's code LOCKED23 for 50% off up to a $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app, spend $15 or more, subject to change. Terms apply. David, offensively, obviously, we talked about, hey, if you're Justin Herbert, if we're just recently the highest paid quarterback in NFL history on a per year basis, the game falls on you. But the biggest storyline in this game leading up to it was Kellen Moore, right? And him getting the revenge and him running up the score on the Dallas defense. Obviously, Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore had a much more difficult task than Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys offense did in this game. But still, there was a lot of talk about it. And David, when you look at this game, 17 points just isn't enough to get it done. There were some good things I thought from Kellen Moore, but at the end of the day, you scored 17 points. 7 of those points were set up by your special teams because Jasir Taylor had the, 1,000 IQ play of running another blocker into a punt returner to get the Chargers the ball back and just causing a scramble that made the Cowboys touch it first even when they didn't need to.
Yeah.
But Kellen Moore, you're the offense coordinator. You're supposed to be taking this offense to new heights. But in the last 2 games, right, the last 6 quarters, David, from this team, they've only scored 24 points in 6 quarters. Or not even that. They've scored 17 points because they got shut out in the second half against the Raiders, right? So you've scored 17 points in your last 6 quarters of action. Half of that against the Raiders, not great defense. And then you come in this game and you only put up 17 points. It's just frankly not good enough.
Daniel, the first drive of this game was very exciting. It was set up by a great special teams return by Darius Davis. Yeah. And the scripted first series was beautiful. Like I said, it was like a hot knife going through butter. The Chargers went right down the field, put it right in the end zone. I was like, all right, cool. I like this.
They scored twice. Josh Palmer had a touchdown that was called back. Yeah. They got into the end zone twice on that drive.
Yeah, the setup was beautiful. They executed great. But then after that, it was 4 punts and then a turnover on downs. Way too many empty possessions in the middle of the football game. You can't win if you do that. You just can't. Way too many of those 3 and outs and just not being able to be productive, staying on the field. It's just not any way that you can win the game. One great series, and that's pretty much it. After that, it was a lot of penalties helping you out and a lot of inconsistency getting down the field.
Yeah, and your offense just not executing. How many times do we see an illegal man downfield take away a big play?
Illegal shift.
Illegal shift, right? Holding and things like that are obviously not as much on the offensive coordinator, but there's so many things that detracted from what could have been a good offensive performance. And like, I think for me, like the hard part here is like, obviously he schemed up 2 brilliant plays to Keenan Allen that each should have went for 40 plus. And one of them is an obvious touchdown. It's like, that's good coordinating, right? Like Gerald Everett cuts off a route that would have been a big first down, and it ends up being a punt by the Chargers offense. Like, that's a good play that they just, goes down the books as something worse. But like, I do think though as well, when you're talking about the late game execution, that was something that bothered him and wasn't always great for him in Dallas, and something that feels to have followed him in full force to Los Angeles. And Mike McCarthy can't be scapegoated, right? I thought there was plays that, things he had guys open. He called the right play call, and Justin Herbert didn't execute. Yeah. But overall, though, he has to take some blame for it here. And I think the big part of it, too, is like your offensive line and your running game are both letting you down. And I think specifically, Kellen Moore was supposed to improve this running game. And it's another game, David, where the running game is totally non-existent.
I mean, non-existent is honestly, I think, a little bit pleasant. I mean, it was
disgustingly
horrible.
Bad.
23 carries, 53 yards, which is basically 2.3 yards per carry. Austin Eckler had 14 carries for 27 yards. That is horrible. And I can't really put it on anybody else because besides Justin Herbert, every other person only carried the ball one time and got 2 yards. That includes Everett, Spiller, and Kelly. Then didn't really touch the ball. And there wasn't a lot of holes to run through. So honestly, this offensive line,
was a mess.
They have to take some of this blame. They have to share this blame. They are not opening up enough holes, especially when you have 2 guys in the interior that are supposed to be really strong, really physical type of guards. They got to start opening up some holes. This offensive line is not doing these running backs any kind of favors. Even getting Austin Eckler back, and we all know the weapon that he is, he could not find any space tonight.
Yeah, there was not a lot of space. I'm sure there was a few holes missed there, but like the longest run outside of Justin Herbert was 6 yards in this
6 yards, yeah.
Like if you said 53 rushing yards, I mean, you take Justin Herbert out of that, right? That's 17 carries for 33 yards, a 1.9 yard per carry average. Like, it's non-existent. You were hoping Austin Eckler would come back and help. You were hoping that, you would have running backs that would be good enough to at least create something on their own to kind of bail out some of maybe the poor blocking. Running and how well you run the football before even having a great running back, which helps, starts with the offensive line. And starts, we hope this scheme would be a lot better, and the players need to take a lot of, of the blame for not being able to execute what we have seen be a very well-run rushing scheme in his time in Dallas. I mean, obviously the Cowboys didn't run the ball well either under Mike McCarthy, but but the bigger thing, David, is just the constant pressure that Justin Herbert's under. Like, I get it. Corey Linsley is devastating. Like, losing him is really devastating for this team.
Horrible.
His addition has been one of the best free agent signings when he's been on the field, ever. But like, at least 6 penalties on this offensive line, no holes being opened up in the running game, and in big moments, letting Justin Herbert get his head taken off.
Crumbling. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's been an all-encompassing type of performance here. Yeah, like especially
people are going to see 1 sack and not blame him. That's the thing is, it's like the 1 sack part of it is the most misleading stat you're going to take away from this game is Justin Herbert only getting sacked 1 time.
You can't look at that and have a clear understanding of what the offensive line did or how they performed tonight because they weren't good enough. I mean, Justin Herbert is a magician. I've told you that before. He escapes sacks like nobody else in this league. He is phenomenal at that. But that's not the only part of the offensive line's job. They have to make sure and they open up holes for their running backs, and they gotta get that done. And unfortunately, up to this point this season, they have not been able to do that at a high enough level outside of one game where you saw a lot of light boxes.
Yeah, I mean, the first game of the season is the only game that they've run the football well. Now that means you've had 4 straight games where your running game has been a total negative for this offense, and that was one of the biggest reasons Kellen Moore was
even more pressure on Justin to perform, and it's hard to perform like that.
It's been worse than freaking Joe Lombardi's rushing attack. I mean, let's just say it. Like, 4 games with the production they've had over the last 4 games, like, it'd be hard to even find a Joe Lombardi.
It's been awful.
Stretch of 4 games that's worse than what we've seen over the last 4 games. And the best part is, David, you're coming off a freaking bye week, Kellen Moore, and you put up 17 points. And Justin Herbert wasn't great, and there were some plays that were left on the table. But, like, at the end of the day, you're the offensive guy. It has to be better than that. And to get 17 points coming off of a bye week against your former freaking team,
it's not enough.
not good enough, man. And almost impossible to defend. And there's a lot of blame to go around, but like the offense can't be let off the hook, but neither can the defense, man, because one step forward, two steps back. The Chargers made some improvements defensively. The run defense was great, but in big moments, they have terrible penalties. They're giving up 3rd and longs, and they deserve some accountability for this as well, as does Derwin James, who cannot get his penalties under control. We're talking about that coming up right after this. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about the only place you should be buying your tickets, and that is Game Time. And the thing about Game Time is, especially in times like this, you can fantasize over going to things that aren't football games because it's not just football, right? You can go with music, comedy, a theater near you. You can find whatever tickets you're looking for with Game Time. And with their Game Time guarantee, you know that you're going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in row 4 less than what you paid for them, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And another great thing about Game Time is you can always see the seats that you're sitting in before you buy the tickets. Man, you don't want to buy a seat and then have that thing be obstructed by a giant, concrete pillar. We've all been in there. You get to see your seats before you get them with Game Time, and you can know that you're getting the best price. So snag the tickets that you want without the stress with Game Time. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL. You get $20 off that first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. David, we have to talk about this Chargers defense, man, because there was a lot of good moments for them, right? But it just is not going to feel that way going forward because of how this game ended. But hey, that's just today's show. On tomorrow's show, we have to talk about Quentin Johnston, obviously a guest on this show, kind enough to come on the show. And I think we have to talk about just are the Chargers just a bad team at this point? A lot of buy or sell overreactions we're going to get to tomorrow as this short week commences, and then you got crossover Thursday and so much more. But make sure as well you guys are checking out the Locked On NFL Kickoff Live each Friday, every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with Tanitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs, and the rest of what makes the Locked On podcast great. All of the local experts breaking down all of the games on the weekend. Again, that's 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Friday on the Locked On NFL YouTube channel. David, let's get to this defense. I was putting it off as long as I could, but we have to talk about it. And for me and for you, right, some really good moments, but it comes down to this. At the end of the game, just egregious penalties, not being able to get off the field on 3rd and longs is absolutely what killed this team.
The inability of this Chargers team to get off the field on 3rd and long is straight up infuriating. Yeah. I do not understand how you do so well to set yourself up to use your exotic blitz packages to get pressure on the quarterback, which has had a ton of success, and then you shoot yourself in the foot by making a dumb mistake, causing a penalty, or allowing a conversion in situations where it's absolutely inexcusable. It cannot happen.
Let's go over them, David. Okay, on the last drive, the go-ahead field goal drive, let's go to when it was tied, 10-10. Chargers tie the game with a field goal. 3rd and 11 on the go-ahead 4th quarter touchdown drive at that point. The Chargers can't get Dak down. A couple pass rushers have a chance at him. He ends up rolling out, throws back across his body, and has Tony Pollard for a first down. That's bad, right? You don't want to give up that first down. What's worse is when you miss the tackle, Michael Davis in this case missing the tackle, and then it turns into a 60-yard gain, right? You turned an 11-yard gain into a 60-yard gain. Giving up the 3rd down is bad. Having it turn into that was worse. And the thing that really bothered me too, the defense stopped. The Chargers defense assumed he made that tackle, stopped running. Credit to Asante Samuel Jr. for chasing him down, right, and making him actually have to earn that touchdown a little bit. But the rest of the defense stopped around him. Everyone stopped trailing. Nobody rallied to the football in that situation. Nobody's trying to go punch the ball out. They were all caught flat-footed, and they gave up a 60-yard game because of it. And then the other most egregious one, 3rd and 18, tie game. You're about to get off the field, and give Justin Herbert the football, even with a struggling offense, you're about to give him the football with a chance to go win the game with the field goal, not tie the game, go win the game with probably some decent field position too, because you've totally stifled this drive by the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott ends up having to run out of bounds. They can't get anything on the actual play itself. Not only do you get one defensive penalty that's an automatic first down, David, 2 defensive penalties that are an automatic first down on 3rd and 18. Unacceptable. Those 2 plays right there, unacceptable.
There are very few plays in any NFL playbook that are designed to pick up 18 yards. Okay? Yeah. It just doesn't happen. So the only thing the Chargers need to do in this situation is not cause a penalty and keep the play in front of you. Yeah. That's all you have to do. And the Chargers could not do it. It just goes along with when it's in that third and long situation, the Chargers should be getting off the field, but they're not because they're shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again.
Yeah, and this is the hard part, right? Like, if you look at the straight-up numbers, you're going to see that the Cowboys converted only about 33% of the time on third down, which seems good. And Brandon Staley saying after the game, we're a good third down defense. The problem is the third downs you allowed were not only in the biggest moment of the game where the defense allows what should have been 14 points, right? In the last 2 drives of the game, the Cowboys offense should have had 14 points if Tony Pollard doesn't drop a ball in the end zone that's a little, high from Dak Prescott. Yeah. He was wide open. It was the right play call. They had the guy they wanted. He doesn't catch it, right? You should have given up 14 points. As it is, you give up 10 points on the last 2 drives of the game with the game on the line, right? You can't come through in crunch time when you need it the most. Yeah. The worst thing is, though, on third down, the conversions you gave up, 3rd and 18, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, and 3rd and 6. And even when this team gets 5 sacks like they did in this game, David, they had 5 sacks the Chargers did, right? It's so all or nothing. It's so boom or bust. Yeah. They either get a sack or they're allowing him to break contain and it turns into a big play, in this case, for Dak Prescott. But, let's call for some accountability too, man. Yeah. Derwin James, bro. What are you doing? That they're looking at you. They know you've been fined twice already this season. So to have 4 games and for you to, in every game, on average, have a 15-yard penalty that you've allowed, what are you doing? I don't care if you think it's soft or not. You know they're going to call it. And they've called you specifically for it, and they're looking at you specifically to call it. You have to be better, man. 2 15-yard penalties is egregious. That's terrible.
And you're a captain of this team. You're one of the voices of this organization. You are one of those guys that everyone looks to because we know how incredibly talented you are. But when you make these same mistakes over and over again, it makes it more difficult to defend you because you're hurting your football team. We know you are a great player. We understand that. It is clear and obvious. But when you make these mistakes, when you cause these 15-yard penalties, they have the ability to swing the momentum in the football game. And it so often happens that way. DJ, you've got to be better.
Yeah, man, and it sucks, man, because, he definitely is playing a different style of, and the NFL has gotten softer. If he was playing 10 years ago, though a lot of those hits aren't penalized.
Yeah, they're legal.
Those roughing the passers definitely aren't penalized. And a lot of them are soft calls, But at the end of the day, you're a captain. You have to be better. And if you're Brandon Staley, you have to be better in these big moments. Your team has to be better prepared for these big moments. They can't be crumbling. Even when a lot of the game, you're getting a lot of good stuff. Their run defense was spectacular in this game. They were great.
26 carries, 96 yards, 3.7 yards per carry.
And that's a lot of Dak. A lot of that's inflated by the Dak 18-yard touchdown, right? And they deserve some, that was more on the outside guys that really gave that up. But,
he fooled everybody.
Tony Pollard carried it 15 times for 30 yards. You would take that every single day.
Every day.
You get 5 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. Kenneth Murray was awesome against the run today. You forced 3 3-and-outs. You had 4 drives where you allowed 4 plays or less.
Khalil Mack was great in this game, too.
But at the same time, if you're Brandon Staley, and I think game management-wise, Brandon Staley actually was much better than Mike McCarthy in this game. He probably gave up some points at the end of the first half, didn't really manage things well at the end. But, how do you let CeeDee Lamb, after what wide receiver ones have done to you so far this season, go 7 catches on 7 targets for 117 yards?
And have that much cushion, to have that much ability to operate. That just can't happen. You can't.
After you've let Tyreek Hill do what he did to you, after you've let Justin Jefferson do what he did to you, after you let Devontae Adams beat you in big moments, how do you have Jasir Taylor one-on-one with this dude in these big moments? How do you have Michael Davis giving him 12 yards of a cushion on 3rd and 8?
You can't. You just can't have it. It's unacceptable.
That's not a good coach defense. That's not a well-coached defense. You see it in, the stunts and stuff like that they've set up to get 5 sacks. A lot of that stuff's good. But your defense can't be this unorganized.
But that's what the Cowboys were doing. They were sending pressure. And then they were playing man-to-man, making you have to go make a play. Yeah. That's what the Chargers should have done, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and in Derwin James, too, it's if you're going to be the guy that gets penalized, I need to at least see some impact plays from you, right? Like,
yeah.
At the end of the day, like Joey Bosa, it had some really good plays against the run. Obviously, he's really banged up too. You need him to come away with one of those big plays and those big passing downs and come away with a sack, right? You need your star players, the guys you're paying the most for, to come through in these big moments. And more often than not, late in the game, they're not doing it, right? Like, I'm not going to put it on Tuli Tuipulotu, right? I'm not going to put it on some of these, on Dean Marlowe or, Jasir Taylor even, right? Like, that's not on him. You're using him out there. Like, either way, a frustrating game. The Chargers just can't beat good teams, and they can't prove that they're a good team, even though we know they have a lot of quality players on this roster, even though we know that outside of Monday night, they have a really elite quarterback. It's going to get shamed now because of this bad performance, and people are going to pretend like he hasn't been one of the best quarterbacks since he was drafted. And that's what sucks. That's what sucks about being a Charger fan on a night like this, when this team goes and lets you down, and there's no excuse for it. It has to be better, and people have to be held accountable for that. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. We'll get into some of the bigger overreactions and storylines tomorrow, like Quentin Johnson, man, it's getting tougher and tougher, right? Getting sat on big time downs, and just at some point, this Chargers team is a bad team. So we'll get into that tomorrow to make sure you don't miss it. Go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC or me at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogmeyer at Dro Talk SD or our Instagram at Locked On Chargers on the Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Thank you guys so much for coming out and venting with us after a tough loss. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow with Chargers buy or sell. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.